Hello, and welcome back to Curious Planet. This video is part of my Geology Foundation series. Here, we're laying the groundwork for understanding our planet on a deeper level. And today, we're talking about igneous rocks. Igneous rocks start as molten magma deep beneath the Earth, and they come in two flavors, felsic and mafic. Felsic rocks like to be up top with us. They're mostly stable in the upper crust, they're rich in silica, and they're generally light in color. You might recognize silica as quartz. Mafic rocks prefer to stay deep underground. They're destabilized in the upper crust and are typically made of darker minerals and are low in silica. But both felsic and mafic rocks start in the mantle. The mantle is an enormous layer of superheated rock that's kept solid by the immense pressures at its great depth. But sometimes the conditions are just right for some of this mantle material to begin melting. And because molten rock is less dense than solid rock, the mantle material starts to rise. We call a rising body of mantle material a mantle plume or a pluton. And if the pluton cools and hardens to form rock before reaching the surface, we could call this a plutonic rock, or an intrusive rock since the pluton is intruding the crust without actually reaching the surface. Since intrusive rocks are stuck underground, they cool very slowly. And this means that they stay hot for longer, which gives them more time to grow large crystals. This is a key component of plutonic or intrusive rocks. They have large crystals or coarse-grained textures compared to other igneous rocks. For example, if the rising body of magma does extrude onto the surface, it will be forced to cool very quickly because it's exposed to the air. Therefore, it's not hot for as long and there's less time for crystals to form. So volcanic rocks or extrusive rocks have smaller crystals or maybe no crystals at all. The continued emplacement of lava in one place will eventually build a volcano. So we call these rocks volcanic rocks or extrusive rocks because they've extruded the crust and have reached the surface. So let's take a look at our four qualifiers. We have felsic versus mafic, and we have intrusive versus extrusive. And you can see we're starting to build a kind of matrix that we can use to think about the origin of igneous rocks based on their mineralogies and their textures. This rock has many large, light-colored crystals in it. So we might assume that it's an intrusive felsic rock. Something like granite. This rock is technically something called tonalite, which is similar to granite, but a little different. We can talk about that in another video. This is a piece of core from one of my old jobs. Whereas this rock is darker in color and doesn't have many visible crystals, so we might assume that it's an extrusive mafic rock. Now, basalt's a great example of an extrusive mafic rock that you may have heard of, but this rock isn't basalt. This is actually a metamorphosed volcanic rock, and if you want to learn more about that, check out my video on metamorphic rocks. But these are just two end members of a whole spectrum of rocks, many of which fall between felsic and mafic, and we could call those intermediate rocks. There's a lot that goes into this, but I'm going to leave this video here, keep it short and sweet. Igneous petrology is a beast of a topic, and there's a ton of stuff that I'm leaving out here just for the sake of keeping things nice and simple. But I love this stuff, and maybe you do too. So I'm going to make a follow-up video doing a little deep dive on a lot of the things that I left out of this one. So stay tuned for that if you want to bite off a little more. And who knows, I might make a whole deep dive series for each of the topics that I do these shorter videos on. But that's all for now. As always, leave your questions and suggestions below. And until next time, stay curious.